You think she wants flowers? She wants fire. She doesn't ask if you're strong. She provokes it, not with words, but with silence, with the way she suddenly pulls back her warmth, or the way her eyes, once oceans, now feel like mirrors, cold, flat, and reflective. This is not rejection. This is initiation, and if you think it's about her moods, you've already failed the trial. Most men don't even notice the test. They mistake it for confusion. They start apologizing for air they didn't breathe, begging for affection they haven't earned, and drowning in emotions that aren't even theirs. They regress. They become boys again, and that, right there, is the end. She was never testing your niceness. She was testing your spine. Carl Jung understood this long before alpha became a hashtag and masculinity became a crime scene. He saw that women, at the level of myth, do not ask a man to be a man. They summon it, not through instructions, but through contradiction, through complexity, through chaos, because only through the mirror of the anima, the internal feminine within man, can his wholeness be revealed or destroyed. So when she grows distant for no reason, when her voice gets sharp without warning, when she smiles at you like she knows something you don't, she does. She knows she's pressing against your reality, testing it for cracks. And she's watching, not to see if you fight back, but to see if you vanish. You don't pass this test with logic. You pass it by not flinching, by standing in the presence of the riddle she becomes and not solving it. Because she's not a puzzle, she's a force. And if you need her to make sense before you can stand your ground, you're not a man. You're an accountant of emotion, keeping score in a game where the rules were written in a language you never bothered to learn. Jung warned us that man's greatest danger lies in becoming possessed by the unconscious, by the things he cannot name that move him anyway. And no figure in the masculine psyche possesses him more than the unintegrated anima, the undigested feminine, the emotional chaos within him that he outsourced to women because he never learned to hold it himself. This is why you obsess over her approval, why you panic when she pulls away, why her moods feel like life or death signals to your nervous system. It's not about her, it's about you. You never face the woman inside you, and now you're projecting her onto every woman you meet, hoping they will give you what you won't give yourself. Containment. Containment. That is the word. Not control, not suppression. Containment. The divine masculine does not kill chaos. He holds it, without flinching, without fixing, without fleeing. And when a woman tests you, she is asking, without language, if you are that kind of man. Not with her words, but with her energy. And if you are not, she will devour you without even knowing why. Because feminine energy is not polite. It is not reasonable. It is not manageable. It is wild. And in Jungian terms, it is initiatory. It pulls you into the underworld, not to destroy you, but to burn off everything about you that was pretending. So when she challenges you, when she glares or doubts or withdraws, do not respond like a child abandoned. Respond like a sovereign. Respond with presence so firm it makes her feel safe enough to finally rest. Not because you made her happy, but because you stayed when every boy before you broke. Do not chase her love. Anchor your own, because if you do not become the fire, you will beg to be warmed. And that, brother, is the most humiliating death of all. It starts subtle. You don't even feel it happening. She's just asking why you didn't call, why you don't talk like you used to, why you seem distracted lately. But she's not looking for your answers. She's watching your posture. Do you shrink? Do you panic? Do you turn into a man who suddenly believes he's guilty just because her tone changed? That is the test. And it's not emotional manipulation, it's biological intelligence. Jung called it the process of individuation, the lifelong task of becoming whole. And part of that journey, for every man, is the confrontation with the feminine, not as fantasy, but as force, not as reward, but as reckoning. Because the woman in front of you is never just herself. She is the living projection of the woman inside your psyche, the anima, that mysterious, shifting image of the feminine that haunts every dream, every longing, every heartbreak. And she doesn't care about your excuses, not your work stress, not your childhood wounds, not your 5-point plan to communicate better. She cares about one thing, Can you be unmoved when everything around you demands movement? If you can't, you're not strong. You're adaptable. And there is nothing more dangerous for a man than mistaking adaptability for power. A man who adapts to every mood, every sigh, every tear, he becomes elastic, stretchable, forgettable. He doesn't fail loudly. He dissolves quietly. Until the day she looks at him and doesn't feel him anymore, not because he left, but because he disappeared into her. Jung warned that men who do not integrate the feminine become possessed by her. And possession doesn't mean levitation and exorcisms. It means obsession. It means you start orbiting her mood instead of living by your mission. It means her smile becomes your sun, and her disappointment becomes your tomb. You become, as Jung described, a man split in two, publicly postured, privately panicked. You smile wide and nod on cue. You say all the right things, but your eyes have that twitch, that begging twitch for affirmation. You fear her pulling away more than you fear your own self-betrayal. And that, right there, is how a test becomes your ruin. Because she was never asking for perfection. She was asking, do you belong to yourself? Can you hold your truth when it costs you her approval? Can you tell her no without trembling? Can you love her deeply without losing the ground beneath your feet? The anima, in its immature form, is seductive. It promises peace through fusion. Just merge with her, agree with her, follow her emotions, and everything will be okay. But that is not peace. That is erasure. That is the myth of the nice guy who believes that the path to love is paved with his own disappearance. True peace comes when a man becomes vertical, when his backbone is not up for negotiation, when his love is real but his center is non-transferable. That's when she feels it, that rare thing, that ancient thing, that gravitational presence of a man who no longer reacts to chaos but contains it. And that's when the tests stop. Not because she's done, but because she sees. This man cannot be moved by storms, not because he's numb, but because he knows the weather within himself. He doesn't fear her heat, because he's made peace with his own fire. He doesn't flinch at her doubts, because he's answered his own. She stops testing because she finally sees something rarer than perfection. She sees truth. And brother, the second a woman sees that truth in you, she either rises to meet it, or she leaves. Not out of hate, but out of awe. Not the kind that burns indiscriminately, but the kind that knows its own heat. The kind that radiates, that illuminates, that consumes only what is false. And when she tests you, when she pushes, when she retreats, when she starts to make you doubt yourself, she is not trying to ruin the relationship. She is trying to excavate the real you beneath the version that's been nodding and performing since the day you decided that being liked was safer than being respected. Carl Jung called this false self the persona, the mask we wear for the world, and women are biologically allergic to it. They might play along for a while, smile at the charm, nod at the politeness, but eventually, instinct kicks in. Something in her sees through the mask and presses like a finger on glass to see if it cracks or if it holds. The feminine does not respect facades. It respects wholeness. And that means your ability to hold your light and your darkness, your desire and your discipline, your tenderness and your teeth. Most men only show one half. They play the gentleman and repress the wild, or they play the alpha and hide their wounds. Both are lies, and the feminine knows it. This is why she tests your strength, because until a man becomes integrated, until he welcomes his shadow and stands in his truth, he is a liability, not to her safety, to her psyche. Because the unconscious feminine does not want a servant. It wants a mirror, and it wants to see in that mirror the kind of presence that does not vanish when love gets hard or unpredictable or wild. She's not looking for your money. She's not looking for your Instagram captions. She's not even looking for your protection in the traditional sense. She's looking for one thing. Can you remain unchanged by the parts of her that scare even her? Can you hold her tears without trying to fix them? Can you face her rage without becoming a little boy again? Can you love her darkness without making it your job to save her from it? Because that is strength, not dominance, not stoicism, not the volume of your voice or the size of your bank account. Strength is the ability to remain centered in hell. And when a woman tests you, she's sending you a flare. Are you that kind of man? Or are you still hiding behind roles, routines, and rehearsed lines? Jung would tell you, Don't run. Don't react. Don't try to manipulate the test into ending early. The test ends when you stop trying to pass it and start simply being, because that's the real revelation. A woman can only test what isn't yet resolved in you. If you're grounded, there's nothing to shake. If you're clear, there's nothing to question. And if you're true, there's nothing to prove. The men who fail are the ones who try to impress her instead of expressing themselves. The ones who treat her moods like landmines instead of sacred signals. The ones who confuse her storm with threat, when it was really an invitation into initiation. And the greatest irony? The moment you no longer need to pass the test, you've passed it. She doesn't want a god. She wants a man who's made peace with his own mortality. That's the part most men miss. They think passing her test means being flawless, being stoic, being endlessly composed. But Jung would have laughed at that, because perfection is the refuge of cowards. It's what men chase when they're terrified of being seen, not loved, seen. The tests women initiate are not to crown you, but to strip you of the act, of the script, of the well-groomed persona you thought would earn you her devotion. She doesn't want to meet your representative. She wants to feel your essence. And essence has weight. It has gravity. You can't fake it with texts, trips, or trauma bonding. It's revealed in how you carry yourself when things are unclear. It's revealed in how you don't collapse when she withholds affection. It's revealed in how you don't explain yourself when silence would have spoken louder. That is when she sees you. And this is the paradox. The stronger you are, the less you react. Not because you're emotionally dead, but because you're internally sovereign. You are no longer a man seeking to pass a test. You are the test. And when a woman feels that shift, when your identity no longer hinges on her praise, something ancient within her softens. Not because she's been conquered, but because she's finally standing in front of something she doesn't have to carry. Most men are asking women to mother them, to soothe their fears, to affirm their worth. That is not love, it's spiritual dependency dressed up in romance. And that's why she tests you. Not to hurt you, but to wake you up from your unconscious need to be nurtured into manhood. That's not her job. That was your battle. You either fought it, or you didn't. This is where Jung's teachings cut deep. He said the man who fails to integrate his unconscious will project it. He'll turn the woman into his salvation, his enemy, his judge, his therapist, his mother. All because he refuses to face the terrifying truth. He still doesn't know who he is without her eyes reflecting him back to himself. And if you are that man, unconscious, unresolved, reactive, every test will feel like betrayal. You'll call her unstable. You'll call her manipulative. You'll say she's testing you unfairly. But what's really happening is this. Your psyche is collapsing under the weight of its own undeveloped masculinity. The true man is not afraid of being tested. He welcomes it, not because he enjoys the drama, but because he understands that real love is forged in fire, not comfort. That every test is a sharpening, a crucible, a confrontation with the question, are you a man, or are you merely a boy wearing his father's coat, hoping she won't look too closely? And when you stop fearing her test, something profound happens. You no longer even recognize it as a test. You're not trying to win anymore. You're just being, fully, freely, unshakably. And that, not dominance, not compliance, not performance, that is the man she cannot forget. If you've ever wondered why she pulled away just when things seemed perfect, why her warmth vanished after you gave her everything, now you understand. It wasn't sabotage, it was the ancient ritual of revelation. She wasn't rejecting your love, she was exposing its structure. Was it rooted in self, or was it built on sand? Men who are still asleep blame women for their confusion. They call her tests cruel. They say women play games. But the truth is, a man untested is a man unfinished. And the feminine does not marry unfinished things. She might date them, she might flirt, even nest with them for a season. But her soul, the deep part of her that hungers for union, only opens to what is complete. And so, she tests. Not because she wants to watch you fall, but because she needs to know, will you remain you even when she can no longer hold up your ego? Because if the only version of you that exists is the one she validates, then she is dating a ghost. Jung warned that man's final task is integration, to gather all his parts, his rage, his fear, his lust, his grief, his brilliance, his doubt, and marry them into one indivisible force. And it is only from that center that he becomes a force she can trust, not because he promises her forever, not because he recites poetic lines, but because, even in her storm, he doesn't break. He stays. Not physically, psychically, energetically, existentially. You see, most men have only two gears, chase or withdraw. When she tests, they either chase harder, fawning, pleading, over-explaining, or they withdraw, turning cold, passive-aggressive, or emotionally dead. Both are symptoms of the same wound. They still need her to believe in them because they haven't yet believed in themselves. But the man who has walked through his own hell and met his own monsters no longer fears hers. He sees the fire in her eyes and does not tremble, not because he's careless, but because he's conscious, because he no longer loves her with desperation, but with discernment, and because he understands something too few men are ever taught. The test was never about her. It was always about him. And when a man passes it, not by pleasing, not by performing, but by remaining, something miraculous happens. Her chaos becomes calm, not because he silenced her, but because she found, in him, what she couldn't find anywhere else, a place where her soul could rest without collapsing his. That man, he doesn't chase. He doesn't compete. He doesn't justify. He simply is. And in a world drowning in noise, uncertainty, and masks, that kind of man is not just rare. He is revolutionary. So remember this, her test is not a threat. It is a gift. The doorway through which you walk, not into her approval, but into your initiation. Become that man, and everything changes. If this message reached you, if it sparked something ancient, something real, then share it. Like, comment, subscribe, and support this channel through the link in the description so we can awaken more men who have been asleep too long. Because the world doesn't need more boys chasing love. It needs more men who've become it.